As you recall in an earlier training video, we learned how to apply filters to our records within the tables, where we can pull in some and hide others. Now those same filter features are also available in queries. So if I open up a table, you can see up here on the Home tab in the Sort and Filter group, we got our filters. Let me go ahead and close out of that. So when I open up a query, the inventory query, double click. Home tab, same thing, the Sort and Filter group. So you can go ahead and use the general filter, the advanced filter, filter by selection, or of course you can go ahead and right click on the cell that you want to filter by, like the number 100. So it equals 100. We have a total of 3 records. And then you got the toggle and filter feature to go from what's being filtered back to when it wasn't filtered to going back to being filtered again. And then let's go ahead and click the advanced to clear all filters so we can't do any togglage anymore. And so what I want to do when it comes to filtering records is say that, well, these are pretty simplistic filters, but when it comes to queries, there's a more advanced way of filtering your records, and that's using the criteria field. To find that field, we got to go to the design view of our query, and you can do that by right-clicking on the tab, going to the design view. What a mess. I'm so embarrassed. Well, let me go ahead and clean this up. Click and drag the split bar down. There we go. I feel better. Now I can see the bottom part of my computer's table. And so speaking of which, you can see that my query is based upon these 4 tables here. And then down below on the grid from those tables are the fields that I want to see in the datasheet view of my query. And that includes these 2 from the departments table, those 2 from the employees, 1 from computers, a couple from manufacturers, and then more from the computers. So you don't have to group your fields together by table, which makes it nice in our queries here, and I didn't, as you can see. Let me go ahead and click and drag the scrolly bar so I can go all the way back to the beginning to my first field here, the department code. And you can see down below, we've got the criteria row. So if I want to set the conditions or the criteria that a field has to meet before it can pull in those records, like for the department code, then I have to click in that criteria cell for the department code, as opposed to like maybe for the department name, but let's keep it simple because we just covered it by filtering by selection, right-clicking and saying it has to equal 100. So instead, we can just type it in here, type in 100. After you type in your criteria, you want to exit the cell by hitting the Tab key, so Access, when you do that, can go back and check the cell, the contents they're in, make sure everything's gauche, because if it doesn't like it, it'll give you an error and say, what are you doing? So far, we're good. Now if I come back in here and I type in something that it may not catch, like some text, because, well, the department code is a numeric field, when I hit the Tab key, you see how it didn't give me any errors, but when I come up here to view the results of my criteria here, click on it, it says, hey, the data type is a mismatch. You got numbers and you're trying to filter for text. Ain't happening. So we'll click okie dokie. And let's clear this out, type in 100, hit the Tab key, then come back up here, let's view it. Hey, there we go. We got our 3 records. Let's go ahead and right click, go back to the design view, and let's do something a little bit more fancy. How about if we do multiple criterias? So we'll leave this one here, that it has to meet that criteria, 100. And in addition, it has to meet, let me scroll over here, like the purchase price. Let's say that it has to be less than $1,500 because any computer that we bought that was less than $1,500 is probably a cheap computer, and so it's probably time to upgrade. Okay, that's my way of thinking. In any case, to have it less than $1,500, you want to use the less than symbol. So hold down the Shift key, hit the comma on the keyboard, there's less than, and then type in 1,500 after it. And then you want to hit the Tab key because upon exit, it'll check your work and make sure everything's okay, and it looks like it is. Now if you're like, okay, it's got to be less than 1,500, so it can't be 1,500, right? Well, what if you want it to be less than or equal to? So to include 1,500, to do that, you want to type in your equals after the less than or greater than symbol, because if you type it in before, hit equals, hit the Tab key, it's going to have a problem. Okay. So we got to delete the equals before and type it in after the less than symbol, and then hit the Tab key, and it loves me. Let's go ahead and view the results of this by coming up here, clicking on the View button. Hey, we have 1. So it has to be 100 for the first criteria that we set. And let's scroll over and see if it meets the, ooh, that was close. It's not 1500, it's less than 1500, and if it was 1500, that would be okay because we said it can be equal to 1500, or of course less than, so that checks out. Let's go ahead and right click, go back to the design view, and let's do another one. Let me go ahead and clear the criteria, delete it, and let's do it for the manufacturer. Let me make sure I'm in that criteria row. It gets a little bit challenging if you're way over here and you're like, criteria, is it on this row? Well, what you can do is that you can go ahead and scroll over so the field that you're looking at has a label right next to it. Okay, that's a little bit easier, isn't it? And for the criteria for the manufacturer, let's say it's got to be the name global. Type it in, hit the tab key. Now if it's text that you're typing in, it'll automatically add the quotes around it, which by the way, you ought to put quotes around it, but what's the point in telling you when it does it for you? So it'll add it around it, in case if you're wondering. That way it's focused on everything in between the quotes, the text there, global. Now it's not case sensitive because if I open up my manufacturers table, double click, I got an uppercase G, not a lowercase. So that's good to know. I don't have to use an extra finger to hold down the shift key to make it uppercase. Just type it in. As long as the spelling's correct, then you've got it. So it's got to meet two conditions now, department code 100 and the manufacturer has to be global. Come up here, click on the view button, and we've got one. It meets the 100 and it's global. Oh, that's fancy. Let's go back to the design view here. And let's try something else. Let's say that the department code, well, still has to equal 100, but let's say it doesn't have to equal both 100 and global. It can be 100 or it can be global because maybe we have a manufacturer that isn't in the department 100 but another department that's global. So what we can do is we can delete that and come down to the OR row and type in global, hit the tab key. So it can either equal 100 or global. Let's go ahead and click on the view button, and do we have them all equaling 100? Of course not, because it says it can either equal 100, and if it doesn't, it's either 100 or global. Oh, that's fun. So that way we can pull in all the rest, and coincidentally this one meets both conditions. It's 100 and it's global. Let's go back to the design view. And let's do something a bit more. How about if we say it can equal global, or in addition to the 100 criteria, it can be either that or global, or how about we also add or SpyTech. So if I click after global, hit the space bar, type in or, and then type in SpyTech, hit the tab key, puts the O, the lowercase o, in uppercase, so the conjunction is or, and then it puts quotes around the text SpyTech. So now it can equal 100 for the department code, or it can be global, or it can be SpyTech. So if it meets any one of those three criterias, it's going to pull it in. Let's go ahead and come up here, click on the view button. Okay, so it met some of them. Well, the 100 here, it pulled in the 100s, and then if it didn't meet that, it could be either that or, we got to come over here, global or SpyTech. Is there any that's not global or SpyTech? Well, it's Sunbelt, but it does equal the other criteria, which is 100. So it's going to be pulled in. So you can just go crazy with all these ORs and setting up your criteria, but it's a good start. So let's go ahead and click on the design button to go back. And you see all these check boxes here. If you want to be able to set criteria for a field but you don't want to see the field, like let's scroll back to the beginning here, like the department code, I don't want to see that. I just want the criteria to pull in those departments that have 100 for the code. You can go ahead and uncheck it. Click on the view button. Department code's not there, but the department name is. So remember, it has to equal 100 or global or SpyTech. Well, that one's Sunbelt, so it's got to have the department code of 100. We can't see it, but it's doing its job behind the scenes. So that's cool. Let's go ahead and go back to the design view. And one other thing that I want to show you is that you don't have to be in the OR field to do an OR. So for example, like the department code, it could be 100 space or space 200. Hit the tab key. Oh, it likes that. Didn't give me any problems. And you can see that it went from the lowercase o to the upper O, so looks like it's ready for it. So we've got, wow, 4 criterias that it can meet. It can be 100 or 200 or global for the manufacturer or SpyTech. Let's go ahead and click on the view button. Oh, you know what? Let's go back to the design view. I do want to see this. That would be helpful. Let's go ahead and click on the view button. So there's the department code. So it can be 100 or 200. And if it's not 100 or 200, then it has to be SpyTech or Global. Well, there's two here that's not SpyTech or Global, and it's Sunbelt. So if it's Sunbelt, then it has to have either 100 or 200 for the department code. And so let's go back to the design view. Now before we go any further, I want to clear out all the criteria, and the quickest way to do that is to go ahead and select the entire row. And you can do that by coming over here to the row header for criteria, but go right up and just over that line until you can see a black arrow. Click on it, it selects the entire row, hit the delete key, and it clears out everything, all the criteria. Now up until this point, we learned how to set criteria for the fields that contain the data type of text or numbers. How about a date? Well, not with me. I mean to set criteria up for a date field. To do that, let's go ahead and find one. Oh, there we go. Let me scroll over. Date received. So let's say that all the computers that we received before a certain date are now outdated, and we need to find out who has them and, buy them new ones. So to be able to type this in, like all those computers that we received before January 1st, 2008, go ahead and type in the less than symbol. Less than means that anything comes before the date that I'm about to type in, which is 1/1/08. Now, if you want to include that date, you want to go ahead and type in the equals just after the less than symbol, or if it was greater than, comes after it. Don't type it in before, as you recall in an earlier training video. Access doesn't like that. It's got to come after. And then after you type it in, hit the tab key to make sure that Access accepts it, and you can see what it did after I hit the tab key. It added the 20 for 2008, and also it added pound symbols around the date. Now let's go ahead and see if we have any records that comes prior or before January 1st, 2008. Come up here, click on the View button, and we got a total of 22. Let's scroll over here. There's nothing that says 2008. It's all before it. Great. How about the other way? Let's go ahead and go back to the design view and flip this around and see if we have any computers that we purchased or received after January 1st, 2008. So hit the delete key and flip the symbol so it's going greater than, or hold down the shift key and hit the period on the keyboard. Hit the tab key, it accepts it, beautiful. Come up here, click on the View button, and we got a total of 2 records. Well, let's confirm it. Okay, both of them come after January 1st, 2008. Great. Let's go back to the design view. And let's kick this up a notch. How about if we want to find the computers that we received between 2 dates? Ooh, that's pretty tricksy. Let's come in here and delete the contents they're in, and this is how you do it. So if you want it to come after a certain date but before another, we'll type in the greater than symbol and then the date that we want it to come after, so greater than 6/1/06. So it has to come after June 1st of 2006. Hit the space bar and then type in AND. So the AND conjunction means that it has to meet both conditions or criteria. Remember how we did the OR? Where it can be either that or this or that. Well, now it has to meet both. It has to come before June 1st of 2006, and then we do less than or and less than 1/1/08. Hit the tab key and change the lowercase a to an uppercase A for and. Great. And if you can't see it and you need to make changes, you can click inside and use the arrow keys, or better yet, you can right click on the cell and go to Zoom to zoom in, and it opens up the cell, makes it huge, so you can go ahead and work with the contents therein. A lot easier than that little thing. So you see it has to come after that date but before the other date. It's got the and there. Can't be or. It's got to meet both criterias. So let's go ahead and click Okie dokie and take it for a test drive, and let's come up here, click on the View button, and then scroll over to the dates. So it has to come after June 1st of 06, and well, that squeaked by just by a few days there. So it did come after June 1st of 06, but it has to come earlier than January 1st of 2008, and all of these do. So great. Let's go ahead and go back to the design view, and let's change this up a bit. So if I want to go ahead and work with the contents therein, of course you can right click and go zoom, 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 or if you're a keyboard person and you like keyboard shortcuts, hold down the Shift key and hit F2. Well, make sure you're in the cell here. Then hold down the Shift and hit F2, and it does the zoom feature as well. So instead of using the less than, greater than symbols, we can go ahead and delete those. And instead, let's go ahead and use between. Yeah, type in the word between. That comes before the first date. And then, of course, we're still going to use the conjunction and because it has to meet both dates. So between this date and that date. So without using the less than or greater than symbols, I can't nail the exact date of June 1st or January 1st, but it's got to be in between. So you can do that and go ahead and click Okie dokie, hit the Tab key, go ahead and click on the View button and scroll over. So in between those dates, let's go back. So you can do it that way, back to the design view. And in addition to that, how about if we don't want to see anything listed between those two dates? So not, that's the operative word, not. Let's go ahead and click before between and type in not, space, hit the Tab key, puts it in uppercase. Now let's go ahead and click on the View button to find in all those computers that weren't received between June 1st of 2006 and January 1st of 2008. And of course that comes before June 2006. Now that one comes after January 1st of 2008, so we're good there. And okay, looks like we're not seeing anything that's not between those two dates, June 1st, 2006 and January 1st of 2008. Just what comes before and after those two dates. Now for some reason you have blanks in a cell, like let's come up here and delete Bob, and then go ahead and hold down the Shift key and hit Enter. Let's say that I accidentally deleted it or I simply didn't type it in, and I want to find all those records that contain empty values in the first name field because maybe we want to get rid of them, purge the database, clean it out because they're just, well, they're obsolete, they don't work, or maybe go ahead and do some investigation and find out who this person is, their first name. Well, you can see it's right there, that's easy, but let's say we had thousands of records and we want to find all those who don't have a first name. Let's go ahead and go back to the design view. And oh, we better clean up our criteria here because we don't want anything else but what we want to look for, those records that don't have a first name. So let's get rid of this, click and drag and delete it. And let's go ahead and click and drag this all the way to the beginning. There we go, first name. So to find all those records that have an empty value in the first name, nothing in there, you want to type in null. Then hit the Tab key and it says is null or is empty. So when I come up here and click on the View button, it found, well, that record that doesn't have anything in the first name field. Let's go ahead and go back to the design view. So you can do it that way, or how about you want to find or search for only those records that do have something in the first name field. So maybe we want to do some marketing and we just don't have time to sort through all those records that don't have an address, or in this case, a first name to call the person and say, Mr. Appleman. You know, it sounds more personable by first name. So what we can do is we can come in here where it says is null and type just before null, N-O-N-T, like not, hit the space bar, hit the Tab key, so you're saying is not empty. So let's come up here, click on the View button, and here's all the records that has something or that isn't empty in the first name field. Okay, let's do this another way. Let me go ahead and go back to the design view and clear this out and just go back and let's give Bob his name back. Bob. Welcome back, Bob. Hold down the Shift key, hit the Enter key, and he's back. Let's go back to the, well, before we go to the design view, you can see in the department column, let's do another example as far as searching for those records that don't contain, like let's say in the department name, the word IT. So as opposed to being empty or not being empty, let's say we don't want to find those records that have IT. So let's go back to the design view and go to the department name, the criteria field there, and type in less than, greater than. When you put them back to back like that, that means it's not equal to. And then of course hit the space bar and type in IT, so you don't want it to equal the IT department name. Hit the Tab key, puts quotes around it, and then let's come up here, click on the View button, and in the department name, do we have any ITs? No, because it cannot equal that in order to meet the condition or the criteria to be seen here. Cool, so we don't have to focus on the IT dudes. Let's go ahead and go back to the design view. And one last thing that I think you might find helpful, let me delete that. And let's go to the last name field. You can actually use the less than or greater than symbols for text, well, more specifically for letters of the alphabet, what I'm going to show you. So if I type in the greater than symbol and the letter K for the last name, it means that anything that comes after those names that begin with the letter K. Hit the Tab key to make sure everything's gauche, and then come up here, click on the View button, and for the last name, is there anything that comes after K? Well, it includes anything that begins with letter K, so we don't have to type in equals, but if we did, it wouldn't work anyways. So it includes anybody whose last name begins with the letter K and that comes after it. So let me sing that song. HIJKLMNOPQRSTU. Oh, it worked. Great. How about if we flip it? Let's go ahead and right click, go to the Design tab, and say instead of going anything that comes after, how about anything that comes before at the upper end of the alphabet? Hit the Tab key, click on the View button, and anything that comes before that begins with the letter K, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, doesn't include the K's. Only the greater than symbol includes or is equal to that letter, the letter K. Thanks for watching. Hey, as a quick reminder, if you like my video, please give it a thumbs up. You can also click on me and subscribe to my channel, get notified of the latest videos, and for only $2 a month, you can have access to all my Microsoft Office training videos.